And I'd like to give a warm welcome to Hilda Orton, Chair of the DDI Scientific Board. Hilda.
Thank you very much, Jared. And I will start by, let me see. Something went wrong here. Let me see again. I'll stop share and I will try to share again. Now, can you see my presentation now?
No.
No. Okay.
Do you want me to share?
Yeah, okay, please, if you can share. So, yeah, so I will just go quickly through the agenda here. First, we will have John Johnson, the chair of the executive board, to talk about the state of the alliance. And afterwards, there will be a section about reporting from the past year, activities overview for the scientific board and working groups a little, and then some highlights related to what has happened. And it is the ISO certification of DDI Common Core by Dan Gilman, the DDI-Codebook 2.6, which is new by Wendy Thomas, and the W3C Dataset Exchange Working Group by Franck Coton. And then we will have two discussion topics in the end, the DDI Alliance Stakeholder Map by Darren Bell and the DDI Alliance AI Strategy by Dan Smith. These are things the scientific board are working on, but we would like to have input from the community as well. So that is basically it. And by that, next slide, please, Darren. Yeah, we give the word to John now. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for letting me have about 10 minutes, hopefully, for just to have some thoughts on the alliance. So, yeah, so just some bit of stats really. So, we can see we've had, a bit of a jump in participating members, although in terms of paying members, not so much. But it is good to see that we've had, uh, was it 7 new organisations formally affiliated with the alliance, 1 new partner, which I think we're going to talk about later on in W3C, and some new associate members, which is good, particularly with 3 from France, which is good to see, and also new members in Ireland and Ecuador, which is important, obviously, to get our membership up. Right, next slide, please. And then doesn't really tell that much in terms of year on year, but it is interesting to see where the spread of organisations that are active in the alliance is, still quite spread evenly-ish between the 4 main things, which has been the case for a long time, of archives, commercial, research, and national stats organisations. But yeah, so that's just interesting to see how the organisations, which, the types of data they cover, a lot of different bases. So that's an important indicator of the importance of the standards in different organisational settings. Next slide, please. And again, we've had traditionally been European and North American dominated, and that's still the case. It's good to see a couple of organisations from South America, but I think it is, one of the ambitions in the strategic plan was that we have better coverage outside of our strongholds of Europe and North America. So that's obviously an important thing that the executive board want to keep in mind in terms of trying to find new members. Next slide, sorry. Keep going to. So just a quick overview of some of the activities of the executive board over the last year or so. Just a reminder that the minutes of the meetings are posted pretty promptly after we meet. So do take a look at the minutes if you were interested in the deliberations of the executive board. Over the year, we've provided additional approvals for funding for support for the DDI presence at the Dublin Core Conference, which is followed on the sort of as part of the sort of relationship we've had with them. Support for meetings for the ISO accreditation, which I know Dan's going to talk about a bit later, and continuing support for UNECE activities, which is important for obviously particularly our members in the official stats community. Also provided some support for governance over the ISO arrangements, the establishment of the W3 Dataset Exchange Working Group, some governance and legal matters around that. There were two pieces of work that we had in train during the year, which unfortunately haven't been able to be completely finalised yet. One's a review of membership rights, benefits and fees. It's really about trying to optimise the and see if there are new ideas around membership benefits, rights and fees to try to support growth and sustaining our existing membership base. And they'll be brought to the 2027 annual meeting, but I would hope that we would also have some discussion before that, proposals that allow some sort of discussion on some of the ideas that are coming out of that, and similarly on additional funding streams. Again, we hope to bring something to the next annual meeting, but I expect there'll be some discussion in the meantime. Next slide, please. So one of the activities around the funding is obviously we're supporting the working groups, but we have established priority fund, and last year was the second year of that. And that was successfully bid for by Dominic and Gunza from Meru, and very I think successful project in training that was focused around the needs of data managers in Africa specifically. Well, not specifically, but that's where it was based. And I think it's been quite successful. I think we need to look at ways of sustaining that, and I think the training group has been involved in thinking about ways of sustaining that training. But I think the initial results from that are very encouraging. So in the post survey, they had reported 85% reported adoption barriers being addressed or partially addressed as part of the training, which is a testament to the quality of the training, and over 3/4 reported an intention to adopt DDI. So I think that the impact in Africa, which is an area we have no membership, for instance, is an important part of building the community there and associating that with the alliance more formally. So that was, I think, a very good use of priority fund uses. Just a couple of a few thoughts really around what the challenges are coming up. I think we've seen that research and development budgets are flatlining in many areas. I think that's going to be an area which I think is going to be a challenge for those particularly putting in grants that are related to development around metadata and use of infrastructure and DDI. And then, of course, there's the situation in the States at the moment, which is absolutely disastrous. not just for the states, but also for those organisations that want to collaborate with organisations in the states. We certainly know that some projects and funding in the UK / US has been basically stopped, so it's meant that international cooperation is much more difficult than it was previously. But finally, there are I think still lots of opportunities for the alliance. Sorry, next slide. Sorry. I think there's still quite a lot of opportunities for the alliance. We sort of got a new EU Data Act, which is really focusing on transparency and data sharing. There is a continued interest in utilising social and demographic data with other data, and that's a really important part of the activities many of the working groups do in particular. And I think the sort of solidification of a lot of national data portals is an important area where I think adoption of our standards or allied standards is very important if those things are going to be sustainable and interoperable. I think that the other things, and I hope to hear what Dan says later on the AI strategy, but certainly I think there's a lot of scrutiny of the unintended consequences of AI, and high quality metadata is certainly something that I think is an important part of the need for give people trust in these sort of technologies. The other thing which I think has emerged more recently really is the interest in computer science, in metadata and the general data quality of our traditional strongholds in archives and national statistics. And I think that's being recognised by computer science as being an important way of developing new methodologies and new techniques, which can improve the quality of provenance and so on. And then I think finally there's a sort of modernisation of national statistics programs, which started in many organisations that are affiliated with us are heavily involved in that. But that program is starting to leach into areas where we aren't as active. And I hope that one of the things that the official stats working group can do is to follow up on that program. And I know that one of the challenges from a metadata perspective, which we haven't really challenged as an organisation, is administrative data and what we do and how we document that and how that can be used. So I think that's definitely an area where there's some opportunity for our experience to be an important part of emerging infrastructures and emerging data collections in particularly, say, in the administrative data area. Okay, sorry, hopefully I didn't go over time.
Very much, John. I think you were just on time. So yeah, thank you very much. It's very interesting to hear about both the state of the Alliance and your priorities and things moving forward. So now I would like to talk a little about the scientific board and activities of the scientific board and the working groups. So first, here is a list of who we are. I'm the chair, Darren vice chair. Then you have the members, Amber Leahy, Dan Smith, Noemi Betancourt Cambrera, Simon Hodson, and Wolfgang Sank Möltgen. And then we have two official members, Jared Lyle and Wendy Thomas, as a representative from the Alliance. And then we have some contacts also for W3C, Darren Bell, from the ISO, Dan Gilman, and from the UNEC Modern Stats, Flavio Risolo and Arafan Gregory. Next slide, please. Yeah, and then we have a lot of committee, one committee, that is the technical committee that also has important technical governance responsibilities. But then we have 10 current working groups under us. And there are also other working groups under the executive board, like the statistical agencies one, and marketing is under the EB. But we have the TC, training, controlled vocabularies, the CDI group, developers, SDTL, SDTH, RDF equivalence group, questions and questionnaires, XCOS, qualitative data working group. That is new in 2025, moving from being a subgroup of the CDI group into its own working group on the scientific board. And then the metadata publication and access working group, which is also new in 25. And what is to come, that is that also Codebook and Lifecycle will continue to be developed by separate working groups from the TC, of course in collaboration and overview by them, but they will also become working groups, and that will happen in the very near future. Next slide, please. So what have been doing in terms of meeting and in events? We have virtual scientific board meetings monthly, most of the time, and then a quarterly coordination call with the executive board. And then we had a physical scientific board meeting in Budapest in connection with EDDI in December 2025. And also we have contacts. Each of the scientific board members are contacts for each of the working groups, and they sometimes meet with the working groups to discuss issues they may have or to follow up a little on them. And then we had a lightning talk session at EDDI 2025 with 11 presentations of different topics that is going on in the working groups. Next slide, please. And then to the activities. Our scientific work plan from 24 through 2026 is kind of structured along with the strategic plan, which is focusing on engagement and yeah, we'll get back to that. And here you can see we made in the scientific work plan a set of subpoints for each topic, and the first one is signposting and marketing recommendations, stakeholder map and single source of truth for stakeholders. That will be presented later at this meeting, where Darren will show what has been done already and ask for input. One thing that is finished is the establishment of a new working group in collaboration with W3C. That is the W3C Dataset Exchange Working Group, which will be presented by Francoton later on. And then to broaden the scope and opportunities for DDI tools development, then we have activities of the developers group. They organized the hackathon in 2025 in Budapest, and they are focusing on Nectar tool development, among other things. And also the DDI CDI group has a subgroup that collaborates with the CDIF working group on tools, and they are looking at Dataverse, NHN, and Nectar Publisher integration. So that is basically what we have for that. Next slide, please. And then we come to expansion. That is the second pillar of the strategic plan. And for 2.1 here, we have got now the metadata publication access group, and they are progressing on recommendation for publishing via OIA PMH and describing publication of metadata via fair signposting. And they also have ideas for a DDI API. So very good work is going on in that working group. And to here develop and enable community submission of markup example for all products. That hasn't been done so much, but the TC in collaboration with the qualitative data working group and questions and questionnaire have been developing a template that can be used for use cases and also include markups examples. So that is one step further with that. And then we also are focusing on cross-domain initiative and DDI adoption in that context, because that is very much in the air currently, both in relation to FAIR and also to see if the cross-domain interoperability framework. And a major project will start now in June that is called CD for EOSC. It will be launched now on 3rd June, I think. It will be run for 3 years, and DDI-CDI is an essential piece of that, and is seen as a kind of enabler for data integration between data from data spaces and various data holdings. So that is something that we are looking very much forward to, and seeing that develop. And also the qualitative data group, they have been working together with Digital Humanities from Barcelona Supercomputing Center using CDI for medieval manuscripts. So that is going into the humanities also for DDI. That is a different approach. And then expansion. And there we have, as John mentioned, it's important to keep the liaison between the SDMX community and the UNECE. And now there will be a side meeting of the UNECE Supporting Standards Workshop 2026 on metadata standards and the AI challenge. And that is exactly what you, John, were talking about. This relationship, and that will be the focus, bringing together experts from different kind of type of organizations to discuss this, and that will happen very soon now in Wiesbaden. And then increase visibility of the Alliance beyond traditional audience regions. The training group has been doing a great job there. They've been translating variable and variable cascade into French, allowing more uptake in African countries. And also they collaborate with the Malawi Epidemiology and Intervention Resource Unit to ensure alignment with DDI Alliance training. And they are also working on translations into Japanese and Korean, which will also lead to an expansion. And then ISO certification, and that is done, and Dan Gilman will soon present that. Next slide, please. And further on expansion, support for development of implementation guide to help software architects and developers. The training group has developed some material, and the TC chair and vice chair has met with the people at the hackathon organized by the developers group, and work has begun to create list of tools and metadata examples and DDI profiles, which is very nice. And the questions and questionnaires working group, they have provided a full draft for review of guides and best practices. So that is the aim of sharing with the TC in July. And then, as John also pointed out, it's important to look out for funding opportunities in geographical areas where DDI Alliance has members. And we can mention 2 projects now coming up. It is the CD for EOSC, which is very important. And also another one that is a proposal currently that is called SHOCK 2, that is for the social science and humanities consortium. They will be focusing then on interoperability and using lifecycle and CDI implementations and federation. Other standards also, but those 2 from. And then finally, alignment. And then again, there is standardized technical documentation practices. As I said, TC, Quali, and question and questionnaire have been working on the template for use case. That is very nice and will come out soon. Then you have 2, 3, and 3 here. They will rely a little on the stakeholder map that Darren will discuss later on. And then to liaise with EB, that is kind of something currently we haven't been going very deeply into that, but we keep in touch. And to improve collaboration and communication between SB and the working group, that can always be improved. But what we try now is to have more regular reporting. So every half year we ask the working group to report to us. And then the 3 last point is really about how we can support the TC in their work. But 3.7, there we have now the RDF equivalence group, and they have been kind of making alignment between RDF representations of life cycle and CDI, and they are now focusing on doing it for what is conceptually called the DDI Common Core, which is the basis for the ISO standards, and map that to life cycle and CDI also. And that started in January. And then finally, support and release of new products and versions. That is a TC task, and we can, it's not that we now, codebook is out, but there will be also SDTL life cycle for beta and also CDI new versions coming out for review soon. Yeah, then our activities, main task, plan and carry out activities aligned with the work plan. And also in the autumn, we will create a new plan post 2026. And otherwise, it's more like a follow-up with TC and the working groups. And also, we will continue with the AI strategy that will be discussed later today. And we will again have a physical meeting in Brussels in connection with EDI 2026. So that is all from me. And I thank you very much to everyone that has been involved in the work. And there is much more going on. And we are very proud and happy for all the achievement that the working groups have made. So thank you. And now we give the word to Dan Gilman. Dan, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. So you'll control the slides, Hilda?
Yeah, it's Darren who's doing it actually.
Okay, we'll go back.
Yeah, okay. Oh shit. Sorry.
No.
I'm the incompetent ghost in the machine, Dan.
Very good, Darren. Okay, so I'm Dan Gilman. I am the project editor for the new standard ISO Pass 25955, and I'm going to talk about how this got developed and what all this stuff means. So next slide. So there's, as you know, there's now an ISO standard for DDI that was published in March 2026. And if you don't know, that ISO stands for International Organization for Standardization. And PASS is a specific thing that ISO developed for developing standards based on what are called publicly available specifications. And the DDI Common Core, which is linked at the bottom, is an example of that. And we use that as the basis for developing the ISO standard, as we'll see. Next slide. So the standard was developed through a specific ISO technical committee. It's called TC46, and the subcommittee within called SC4. So TC46 is devoted to information and documentation, which just by that title, DDI seems to fit. And the subcommittee SC4, technical interoperability. We talk about interoperability all the time and how standards are important and used as a means for generating and making sure that you have a way of testing for interoperability. So we submitted the document to them, and it went through the process, and I'll describe this in a little bit more detail. But with the success of this, SC4 has expressed a desire to standardize more from us if we see fit, and that might be a discussion that we have in the future. And finally, if you want, the standard is available on the ISO website for 67 Swiss francs. But I think Jared has made some copies available so people can at least see it. So it won't be hidden. Anyhow, the standard is published and it's available, and you can go to the ISO website and find it. And so it's a big deal. Next slide. So what are the advantages to the Alliance? Well, we can say DDI is an ISO standard, okay? This is a big deal. We've been talking about this for a while. That statement is a little bit imprecise, but the import is clear that having the ISO imprimatur is a good selling point for the Alliance and trying to get agencies and organizations to adopt our standards. It has a fairly clear exposition of what DDI products do. Mostly in general, it doesn't go into a lot of specifics. And it specifies areas for interoperability, both between the DDI specs themselves and from DDI specifications to other standards. And of course, interoperability is spoken about a lot. It's important, and the more we do to support that and provide the kinds of mechanisms to help people understand how to interoperate, we do better. Next slide. So some additional advantages to us for the standard. The standard specifically focuses on variables, what they do, how to describe them, the difference between a variable and its description, something I think sometimes gets confusing. More about interoperability. Basically is what I've been saying, the advantages of using standards, but also for data access and integration, and especially the automation of doing that along with the FAIR principles and ideas. The model-driven design, which is eases communication, updating the various standards and maintaining them. The standard discusses that. And these are advantages that or the specifics that the standard addresses. Next slide. So I just wanted to then go through the contents in the standard. This is very quick. The standard is organized by what are called clauses, and these are the titles of each of the clauses plus an introduction. And these sections correspond pretty directly to the DDI Common Core document. The scope and normative references section, which are part of every ISO standard, are not in the Common Core. And there are a few little wording differences between the Common Core document and the ISO document. Most of that was based on comments that we received during the ballot process, which I'll describe a little bit later. But the facts, the requirements, the statements about the standards, they're all exactly the same. And so this gives you a sense of what the standard is about and what it addresses. Next slide. So I want to talk a little bit about the ISO standardization process in general, so you get a sense of what's going on with and what we had to do to make this standard happen. So ISO is divided into TCs, technical committees, and then the technical committees are divided into subcommittees. And the membership there is based on nations, so they call them national bodies. And the national body is essentially a committee of stakeholders from each nation that wants to get involved in the standardization that the TC engages in. There happen to be 31 countries represented in SC4. But the Alliance has a special membership category. So the Alliance can't be a national body, right? We're a consortium across nations. So it turns out that for subcommittees, you can become a liaison. So they call it Category A, liaison. So we have this designation to Subcommittee 4 within TC 46. And this gives us the ability to submit proposals for standardization. And so we took advantage of that. The limitation is we can't vote, but that turned out not to matter so much. So, but that's the framework there. Next slide. So the PAS, the publicly available specification submissions, are designed to be fast-tracked. So they're based on a document that's already been reviewed and published by prior by the submitter. So for us, we went through and developed the Common Core document. It was reviewed several times and changed, modified, and then became a technical document for DDI. When a document is submitted for the PAS process, there's one technical ballot that is required, and I'll describe that in a second. And once no technical issues or changes are needed, then ISO can publish the document. So a technical ballot is one where the submitter receives comments that are of any kind, technical, editorial, or general. And the technical comments are the important ones because they address the requirements that are laid out in the standard. And when they're resolved, when those comments are resolved, that might result in changes to requirements. And then when there are new requirements put into the into the document, it requires a new ballot. So the effort is one to try to avoid this because this slows the process. Obviously, you don't want to have to go through new ballots. This takes several months each time. So it requires real careful wording in the draft to make sure that people understand exactly what's being described. Next slide. So given that process, then the Alliance then had to ask the question, well, what do we want to standardize? So the SB formed a temporary working group, which basically comprised Arafan, Gregory, and me. And we asked the question, so, what should we try to standardize? Should we focus on codebook, lifecycle, CDI? But the problem with trying to standardize any one of those is it requires maintaining the project in two places under two different schedules. And this was not going to work. And plus, it would require drafting the already existing document, long, complicated documents into the ISO template. That work seemed unnecessary. So we looked at previous experience and recognized that SDMX also published a standard, 17369, and it focused on exchange. So what Arafan and I decided to do was, okay, what are the essential things about the DDI standards that we can focus on? Next slide.
2 minutes, done.
Sorry?
2 minutes.
2?
Yes.
Oh my God, I'm going way too slow. All right, so what should we standardize? So we decided that the core features, which gave rise to the Common Core document, variables in the variable cascade, units in the unit cascade, the unit type, universe, and population, value domains, the data lifecycle, the model-driven design, and semantic interoperability, which really was the use of controlled vocabularies. So the Common Core was drafted and then submitted to TC46. Next slide. Of course, I said the Alliance reviewed and published the document. It's freely available on the Alliance website. I attended an SC4 meeting in Delft in the Netherlands a year ago, and I introduced the document to them and described the Alliance. So then SC4 approved the project. I formatted the Common Core document into the ISO template, which is not an easy process. Added a few requirements. I noted the scope and normative references from before. All of this is in one of the ISO directives, part 2. Gives all the rules for doing that. We did that. Next slide. And this included taking definitions from the glossary. I worked with the chair and secretary for SC4 and the ISO Central Secretariat. I've got the names of the people below. Then once the document was in the template, the ballot was run from September to December 2025. Ballot closed December 9th. 31 countries responded. Basically it was approved, but one country gave us some technical comments, and that presented a little bit of a problem. Next slide.
Yeah, you're over time now, so
do
quick.
Okay. Well, okay.
This
will be the last one.
Okay.
So So this was we had some worries, but the process was smooth and fast. We were able to uh, resolve all technical comments editorially. ISO Center Secretariat agreed, so we needed no new ballot, and we went to publication. But we aren't done because all standards undergo a relevancy review every 5 years. This is called a systematic review. And so we need to stay involved to be able to maintain that and possibly make changes as things go forward. And so someone other than me, I'll skip these slides on the Common Core. I've discussed this enough. The someone other than me eventually is going to have to take over these chores. So thank you. I can skip the Common Core stuff because uh, that uh, that document is available. Everybody can see it. So if there are questions, I'm happy to try to answer them.
Thank you very much, Dan. And thank you so much for all of your work with this and for the successful result. So, and for your presentation. So, thank you.
Thanks.
And now we turn to Wendy, chair of the TC, introducing Codebook 2.6, the new version. Wendy, please.
Okay, you can go to the next slide, Darren. These are showing up kind of weird. I just wanted to note that most of the substantive slides in this deck are from the presentation made for voting members prior to the vote for acceptance. And those are, here's the link to those. And if you want to see if there's additional slides in there that I cut out. So next. Okay, the publication process here, we initially had a group of about 20 to 25 people as we initially started looking at the possibility and what would go into a Codebook 2.6, as well as looking down the line at what types of things future development might look like. We went through 3 rather long public reviews, and each of those resulted in a number of refinements to the final product. I think we had the case where, as we did one thing, it then led to people saying, "Could we do something in a related area?" Um, we did during this process. We did move GitHub development DDI Codebook development into GitHub, so that we could manage the contributions, and we'd have a good version record of this. And we recently, before the last one, thanks to a couple of our members, added an automatic validation process, which has speeded up that problem for us dramatically. You need to know that Codebook um, is and always has been a handcrafted product, and one of our goals long term is to get it out of that type of process. But it was confirmed by a member vote on March 31st, and it's been published and out the door. So you can go through the standard channels on the website, DDI website, to look at that. The scope of 2.6, we continued the development rule of backwards compatibility, which means that you could slap a version 2.6 schema reference on your existing DDI, and it should parse. But our big goals were to facilitate the use of external controlled vocabularies, support personal and persistent identifiers for individuals and organizations, support multiple levels of access to data and metadata through descriptions of access, and then linking from specific elements to those descriptions, improve the incorporation of SDTL, adding a few things that helped guide you more directly into the SDTL and the future SDTH content. And then we expanded and regularized the documentation, and that was a big job. The controlled vocabulary usage, basically what we did is we expanded the use of concept and conceptual text. We used to have a lot of sections that were various types of string text, and we where we could, we changed those into concept or conceptual text so that you could more accurately describe concepts within textual strings. Next. To give you an idea, this is just what was currently in the 2.5 version for a concept in terms of controlled vocabulary information. Next. And so what we really added was the vocab instance URI so that you could point to a specific item within a controlled vocabulary and a vocab instance code term so you could provide the specific code term. Note that it changed the common usage instructions but this was always supposed to be the code term, but people generally put in the label rather than the code term. If you go to the next slide, there's an example of what this might look like. So we have the vocab, we have the URI. The instance URI is actually a code number. So the term code is SF311-312. The string content, and this is what you really wanted to see and present, say, on a search screen, is draft horses. So that our change in the usage command actually reflected what was the common usage in Codebook. Next. The next thing was the agent identification. We wanted to be able to provide information in addition to the abbreviation, affiliation, role, and URI of an agent. Next. And so we added a specific agent identifier, the type of agent identifier, whether or not it was persistent, and the type of agents. In other words, is it an organization or an individual? So that's consistently done. If you do want to see where these are located within DDI, the changelogs in 2.6 provide this information, as does that fuller slide deck that we used in the presentation for voting members. And this is an example of it, so that you have the URI, the specific agent identifier, that it's an ROR, it's persistent, and the string content is the name of the Geistes Lebensinstitut for Socialwissenschaften. Next. And similar type of thing for an individual, obviously a made-up individual. Next. Access information. What we did was expanded the description for data access rules, created a parallel description for metadata access rules, and then with use of the ID refs attribute access, we put that in specific locations within the DDI that allowed you to then point back to the access rule that applied to that object. So next. So what we did, we provided a type of access, which is a controlled vocabulary. We put in license information for data access, and then the metadata access is a complete duplication of the data access minus the set availability information. So basically, you can describe both access to your metadata and to your data. So particularly when they differ, that's important. The SDTL usage, mostly the ability to specify variables used in processing. This makes it easier when you're going through it and you know immediately which variables are being used without having to process through the entire SDTL entry in that. So we have things about like file derivation. If you're doing a file derivation, you're saying you're keeping variables 1, 2, and 5, you're dropping variable 3, and you're adding a variable 16. So you have a very shorthand, you have a nice shorthand to understand what's going on and what it is that you're dealing with. It also gives you a check to say if you then redid that process, is this what you're getting? So that's very helpful. Next. I told you I'd go through these quickly, Hilda. Field level documentation, we added missing descriptions, we've added missing examples. We attach documentation of attributes actually to the attribute as opposed to various means of putting it in line in the general description of its parent element. And we proof the documentation for accurate reference to field names. As I said, this has been hand done over the years, and it's gone through one, two, three, four, I think 4 or 5 different editors over the years. So as you can imagine, there's been typographical errors that were introduced. It was very useful in helping us go through and um, clean up all of this work. We do have a couple of outstanding issues in the area of field level documentation, and that is the presentation of that. We are using the old version of a proprietary software to generate this. It doesn't always generate it and make it look and lay out in the way that we'd like it to. We want to look and see if we can find a better means of presenting this documentation, a better means of processing it, and also doing it in a non-proprietary tool. Um, and then the style of the XML, particularly in terms of its internal documentation, is very different from what was done in Lifecycle, where we use these tools. So that we'd like something, tools and things that we can use more broadly. So that's one of the things going forward we want to look at. And so it brings us to the continued development of Codebook. As Hilda noted, the technical committee is peeling off codebook development and lifecycle development into their own separate working groups, giving them more consistent attention and allowing them to look at some of these broader issues, particularly to review and codify the codebook design rules, obviously work with us on the automation process, review and update a new getting started best practices guideline, which is in development. Um, Review what the potential is for providing codebook in multiple serializations, particularly RDF, JSON, and possibly an XMI schema. Identify and implement new approaches, open source, for presenting that field level documentation, and then working with the related groups, working groups, to look at how and where new content areas should be added. In particular, I think one of the first areas coming up would be talking with the qualitative content group to see what codebook can support currently, what are best practices for doing that, what might be needed in a future codebook version to better support the descriptive part of qualitative data work. And then, of course, some looking at um, how best to handle question content in codebook so that it translates more easily to lifecycle so that it can be processed more consistently. Because some of those are very much open boxes, and it depends upon what software you used or if you did them by hand and how that works. Next. We're done. Um, I just want to bring your attention to the fact that the technical committee has set up an email, the DDI TC manager. So DDITCMGR@gmail.com. One of the reasons for this is that after over 20 years of chairing the technical committee, I'm going to step out of that role, and we want to be sure that we've got a standard place where people can send that information that multiple TC members have access to, so we know that the issue gets addressed, and if it will no longer be a email Wendy. Um, so uh, just make a note of that particular email. Right now, you'll still get me from it, but that should change over the next months. Okay, we're done.
Okay, thank you very much, Wendy, and well done. And I don't think we are ready yet to thank you in your position yet, but
Well, I'm
thank you
still
very
here.
much.
You're still stuck with me for a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thank you very much for all you're doing for the TC and for this code book. I think it's something that people have been waiting for. Many have been waiting for that, and it's great that it is out. And thank you for presenting it here with us now today. And now we would like to give the word to Frank about the W3C Dataset Exchange Working Group, which is new. Frank, please.
Yep, thanks, Hilde. So the W3C Dataset Exchange Working Groups, maybe probably all of you know what the W3C, but just as a reminder, it's the organization that publishes quite an important part of the standards on the web, of the web. So mainly at the application level, so general standards like HTML, XML, JSON, SVG, or things like that. But also nearly all the standards of the semantic web and more specialized vocabulary like prof for pertinence and lineage, the DataCube, which is based on the SDMX data model, or a more specialized language like ODRL to describe data access. So that's just naming a few, but there are many more. So the context of the creation of this working group, Hilde described the context of the DDI Scientific Working Plan. So it was explicitly one of the goals to engage with different organizations and standardizing organization, in particular the W3C. And on the W3C side, there was also an interest to that because there's really no prominent standard for the documentation of data sets at variable level, but there is a need actually to have this kind of documentation of metadata, and in particular in the context of DCAT, which is the standards used to describe the data catalogs, let's say, or data service catalogs. And the idea is that when you are, I don't know, searching a data catalog through text search or through concept search or whatever, you do need you find some data sets, but you feel the need to go to the data set description, to the variable level, the description. And for now, there's no standard mechanism for that, and then there's no model for that. So that's the idea on the side of the W3C, knowing that probably one of the more complete representation or description of the variable level metadata is from DDI. So that's the context. So I don't say next slide because we're already on the next slide. But the objectives then was to create this joint, let's say, joint endeavor between the DDI Alliance and the W3C. And there are several ways to do that. Well, the objective was to produce the W3C standard for this dataset level documentation. The only way to do that in W3C processes or rules is to actually go through a W3C working group, which is usually just a W3C thing, but on some rare examples, there is a joint collaboration or association with between the W3C and other standardization organizations. In particular, that happens between the W3C and the Open Geospatial Consortium that produced one very important, I think, model or vocabulary, which is called SSS-SOSA, to represent sensor data. So that was the initial idea, to go in this direction, so to set up a kind of joint working group between the DDI Alliance and the W3C. Well, actually, it took a bit of time, I must say. Finally, from the exterior, I was not involved in the discussion. From the exterior, it seemed a bit long and I must say a bit discouraging. But finally, we decided, or the powers that be decided, that actually no deal was the best deal. And so this will be an ordinary W3C working group, but with mentions, explicit mentions of the DDI Alliance in the charter, in the produced recommendations through logos and things like that. That's it. The other choice which was important to make was, and that's only a W3C thing, do we create a new group, a new working group, or do we try to kind of reuse an existing working group? That's the process of rechartering in W3C lingo. And it seems to be easier in this case to use an existing W3C group, which is called the Dataset Exchange Working Group, or DX short. And that's the way that has been chosen. Next slide, please. So this Dataset Exchange Working Group is actually quite an old group. It's been created nearly, well, 9 years ago, actually, with the goal to produce the deliverables that I mentioned here, so that the first viable, let's say, version of DCAT, or the vocabulary for the catalogs of data for data services, and also something which maybe you don't know very well, but which is the content negotiation by application profile, which is kind of an important thing. It's the idea that when you do content negotiation between a server and a client, well, between a client and a server, you can currently, with the existing standards, you can say, well, I want JSON LD, or I want virtual RDF or whatever, but you cannot say, I want JSON LD conformant to this specific standard, this specific profile of a standard. So I want JSON LD for prov, for example. And this is the base idea between the content negotiation by application. So the group has been extended in time, has been recharted several times, I think 3 times or 4 times maybe. There are links in the slide, so you can go and see for more details. The main activity was to let's say focus on the evolution, to pilot the evolution of the DCAT recommendation, which is now in version 3. It's been published 2 years ago, I think. And so that's the group which is used actually as the vehicle for the new charter, which includes this recommendation object for data for variable level metadata. Next slide, please. So actually the rechartering process actually took quite some time because the W3C processes are quite formal and a bit complex, let's say. And indeed, it's not even finished yet because the previous members of the group have to go through a process of reconfirming that they want still to participate to the new charter of the group, and they have a period of time for that, which expires at the beginning of June or something like that. So it's not completely finished, but it's presenting okay. So fingers crossed. But at least the charter itself is approved. It's final, so you can there also click on the link here when you will have the slides in order to see the detailed charter. But the main mission, let's say, of the working group of this new charter is to develop the W3C recommendation for the interoperable exchange on the web of information on datasets at the variable level. So that's the main point, the initial main goal of the group. It's called variable description vocabulary for now, or VVD, and you can pronounce that vivid. But there are also other points that are listed in the mission of the group, in particular to maintain 2 important vocabularies, DCAT, already talked about DCAT, and DataCube, based on requests by the community. So that's also an important piece of work, let's say. and also to publish and to define and to publish guidance on the specification and use of application profiles when requesting and serving data on the web. So that's the connection, the connect profile standards that I talked about a bit. Next slide. So that's quite a lot of work because DataCube and DCAT, as you may know, are not simple standards. They are quite comprehensive. So revising and republishing maybe DCAT or DataCube recommendation will not be an easy. And of course, the vivid specification, which is the main line of work, let's say, it's also a big thing. We will draw heavily, of course, on the DDI content, and in particular, the variable cascade, I would say. But I would be surprised that we will not also use parts of the metadata on data structure, because you have to make the link between the data sets and the variables. So it's probably something that will take some effort. So, but indeed, we have also tentative deliverables, because when the word spread that the group was being rechartered, we had a lot of people coming to us and mailing to us and saying, oh, we have this unfinished business about this or this topic or this other topic. So can we include that into the charter, the new charter of the group? In some cases, we said yes, with good reasons, I think. But it's still more work to do. So hopefully we will have a lot of members in order to do this work. So I listed the tentative deliverables, whatever that means, here. So republish the profiles vocabulary as a rec track, so on the track for recommendation status. The profiles vocabulary is the one to describe standards, actually, and on which the connection by profile is based. So finalize also the publication of this content negotiation by profile note. Actually, it's already on the rec track, but it has not gone to the point of being published as a recommendation. Update also another vocabulary which is called data quality vocabulary, which is currently a working group note, so it doesn't have the status of a standard. But I think it's a very important vocabulary, because of course metadata on quality is very important. It's probably, I would say, a bit too broad right now, so we probably need to have it maybe slimmed a bit. But I think we will work on that. And the last thing is to produce a working group note providing guidance for publishing application profiles of vocabularies. And here we probably talk a lot about DCAT, because DCAT has literally tens and maybe hundreds of application profiles. And in some cases, too much profiles kills the profiles. So we probably have to define a mechanism for the level of quantity or whatever to go for this application profile mechanism. Next slide. So the current situation. So as I said, the group was just created. Actually, it was created at the end of last month, or a few weeks ago. It's chartered for 2 years, until the 27th of April in 2028. The chairs, I used to be the only confirmed chair, which was not a very comfortable situation, considering all the work there is to do. But I'm very happy to announce that Albert from the Royal College is now very nearly confirmed as a co-chair. He had quite important health problems at the beginning of the year, but is now on track. And also, we probably will have Antoine Isaac, who is currently affiliated to the European Foundation, as a third project. As I said, confirmation of participants is in progress, and we're currently actually trying to organize the meetings, the initial meeting, the recurring meetings, when can we meet, and the physical meetings. In the charter, we have to do an initial physical meeting that will actually probably be after summer, because it seems impossible to organize that before the holidays. We are using and reusing some work that we did in Dachstuhl last year, in particular for defining use cases. There are use cases, important use cases for the Sustainable Development Goals or for the high-value data sets by the Commission, the European Commission, and others. And we also have a community group, which is a group which is more open than a working group at W3C. Everybody can participate. We don't know exactly yet how we are organized. We articulate the work between the community group and the working group, but don't hesitate to participate to the working group, or don't hesitate also to follow the work of the working group, because it's all open, it's on GitHub, you can participate through issues and things like that. And that's me, I think. Thanks. Questions?
Thank you very much, Frank. It is great that you have taken the responsibility to be one of the co-chairs of this and taking part in the development of this also. And there also...
So no applause for me?
Yeah, I will applaud for you.
Did I anesthesize everybody?
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
here you got one.
Everybody's gone. Okay.
Yeah, no, it's really great what has happened, and we will thank Darren also as the scientific board contact who helped to organize this, and Jared also from the DDI Alliance. So this has been really great, and thank you for coming and presenting this, Frank. And we are looking very much forward to the work of this group and to follow that up. So thank you very much. And it's really, really an achievement for the Alliance that this has happened. And now we are moving to one of the discussion topics of today, that is DDI Alliance Stakeholder Map that Darren will present about. The last one we found when starting this work was from 2016, so we thought it was worthwhile to do something about it. And yeah, Darren, will you please?
Yeah, all right. Hi, everyone. Okay, so I just want to emphasize that I can't claim any credit for this because Amber Lee and Hilda have done all of the work. I don't think Amber could make it today, so I'm just really presenting on her behalf. So I just want to make that clear. So when we talk about a stakeholder map, really what we're trying to do is get a much deeper and probably more formal understanding of DDI users in the most general sense. We all have an anecdotal kind of understanding of who DDI users are, whether it's stats agencies or archives or other kinds of repositories, but we don't have anything that's really written down in a structured way and, more importantly, is maintainable over time. So it's a good idea in and of itself, but it is explicitly stated as part of the scientific board's work plan, which is derived from the strategic priorities from the executive board. The first two ones of those are engagement and expansion. Engagement and expansion are going to be slightly easier to do and are more informed if you have a really good, solid understanding of your audience base, or a stakeholder map, as we more kind of formally call it. So, I mean, without trying to oversell this, I mean, the benefits of having a stakeholder map is that when you do your comms, whether that's kind of newsletters or emails, you have a clear understanding of how to tailor those communications to different audiences. Professional modelers will respond to a different kind of message to a data steward in a repository, for instance. Over time, we all want to make sure that DDI is adopted and taken up as much as possible. You can frame that as product marketing if you like. Product marketing is most effective when you have the clearest possible understanding of your audience and who your stakeholders are. So that's a good thing as well. When it comes to training, it's probably self-evident that different people have different learning styles and different training needs. Understanding who those users are, where they come from, which products they're working with, as opposed to other products, helps you to target and design those training resources better in the long term. And just in terms of prioritizing effort, where should we focus our efforts? We have a limited budget, limited time. We all work pretty much for free on these endeavors. So really understanding who the users are, the different types of users, that's really helpful in prioritizing and aligning those efforts. There's something else in the scientific work plan, which is an information architecture. I'm not going to go into that the details of that now, but essentially we're trying to standardize the way that information, taxonomies, and the website are structured in the best possible way. Understanding our users and the stakeholder map is pretty important for being able to design the best possible information architecture. So just to give you a visual fix on the work that's been done so far, this is a small subset of the work that Amber initially did and Hilda kind of expanded upon recently. So I'll come on to the next slide. But essentially what we're doing is just doing a big list, as my colleague Hervé calls it. There are many sophisticated methodologies for stakeholder mapping, but before we dive into doing all those exciting quadrants of power and influence and interest, we do need just to do some initial information gathering and get a big list of our stakeholders. So we've done some initial segmentation so far. I think we've decided on 11 groups. These, I wouldn't say they're entirely arbitrary, but that, they're not a kind of industry standard grouping. We're doing what works for us. So I'm not going to read through these and bore you to death. But you can see there, these would be the kinds of things that you expect, stats or agencies, archives. Interestingly, it's not just about organizations, it's looking at projects and platforms. So I've given examples here of some of these things, standards bodies, journals and publishers. So there are a couple of things here that I kind of thought, oh yeah, I hadn't really thought about that. So libraries, government agencies and funders. So this is our working list at the moment. I'll come on shortly as to how we can solidify this list so it's more robust and maintainable in the long term. But this is our starter for 11, if you like, in terms of the top level groupings. So we've got a list of groupings. What are the sort of things we want to know about stakeholders that we think are useful? Again, there are sophisticated methodologies out there for how you should do this, but we just want to be pragmatic and gather the type of information that's actually useful for the DDI Alliance. So, stating the rather obvious, we want to get some contact details for these organizations. We want to understand, what are the main things the DDI Alliance wants to liaise with these people for? Do we see them as active contributors to the work of the Alliance, potential members, engaging with them in terms of encouraging them to uptake DDI in their particular industry sector? We also want to understand the current status of our engagement with them. Are they people? Have we just literally got a name for them and nothing else? Or, there are others, CESDA might be an example where there are lots of current interactions. So getting some sense of what the current state of play is with those stakeholders is useful information to capture. And also in terms of pitching DDI and product marketing, a slightly clearer understanding for each stakeholder of what our proposed benefits would be. If we had to do a sales pitch for DDI to these people, what are the more specific things we would focus on? Are they interested in only CDI, only life cycle or code book? Are there people who are interested really in control vocabularies, but not particularly in DDI? Some level of understanding of where they sit in that landscape is really useful. And to reiterate the point that supports comms and marketing and engagement a lot better. So in terms of developing this, Amber and Hilda have done some great work on this in getting this off the ground. What we'd like to do is to turn this into a maintainable database that possibly could be something on our web platform, which is called HubSpot, if you don't know, that has database capabilities. That's one possibility. We haven't definitely decided that yet, but we'd like to turn that into standardized data with standardized metadata, because metadata is what we do. So really what we're looking for is, now that we've done this initial work, is some feedback from the community. I mean, right here on this call, I'll put out the question now. Are we doing this right? Are there any other things we should be doing? Any other thoughts you might have on the matter? From next week, we'll open the document for comments until the end of June, and then we will then move to formalising that into a maintainable database. So as part of the scientific work plan, we do want to complete this work by the end of this year. But if we can get this sorted out by June, July, that will then underpin the information architecture, which is a piece of design work, which has slightly been delayed due to my level of commitments, but I'm hoping to get that done by the end of September. And also a better understanding of our stakeholders will, almost by definition, inform an optimal and improved strategic plan for both the EB and the SB from 27 going forward. Okay, so I'm going to open the floor. I mean, if you want to put something on the chat, or if you have any other comments, I mean, please raise your hand by all means. Okay. Hilda, can you see if anyone's got their hand up? Because I haven't got the participant screen on at the moment.
Yeah, let me see. I cannot see any hands. Are there some comments to this, or yeah, what do you think? Because we think it's very important. It's one of the things in our work plan. So we would like to hear from you. Yeah, if you feel we are on the right track, because you are the community and we need input from you also on what we do. So if somebody has something to say, then just raise your hand and
Yeah. I mean, if not, that's perfectly okay. As I say, we'll be sending the document out through the mailing list and asking for comments or suggestions. Not just the general approach, but also the specific categories and members of those categories. I mean, if you look at the spreadsheet, you'll see there are lists of organisations that are part of those categories, and it's worth emphasising that a particular stakeholder can be grouped in, a number of different categories. They can both be a repository, but also, a statistical agency, for instance. But okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Catherine says that she has to leave and she will check it out when it is shared. So
okay, well, that's fine. All right. Well, in that case, then we'll move on to the next topic, which is Dan Smith, who is going to talk about the AI strategy that's in development at the moment. Over to you, Dan.
Great, thanks. Hilda, I think there's one slide before this, or Darren. Perfect. So at our face-to-face meeting of the scientific board last year, we decided that AI is affecting lots of knowledge work, lots of technical work, and the DDI Alliance should probably have a strategy for how we focus on AI in our products that we're publishing. So the scientific board is starting to look at use cases to see where we have to integrate, or what we already do well, or where we need to improve. So this session is kind of a chance for the members to find out what we're thinking, and then to provide some input about how AI is affecting your organizations or your usage of DDI. Next slide. So one of the things that the scientific board has realized is that DDI is really good at providing high quality, truthful metadata. So that's one of the things that we excel at currently, and we should probably be talking about how that can be used. But there's also probably some things that we can enhance in the products, making them even more accessible to AI models and AI tools, such as, different formats or simplifications. Next slide. So the idea of this session is to get some feedback from the community about, how are you currently using DDI and AI together? Do you have any kind of requirements that currently aren't being met by DDI, or ideas on how DDI can improve in your AI workflows? And, the last thing is, are there other metadata formats or metadata standards that you're using instead of DDI? And if so, why or where are you using those, and how can DDI either integrate with those, or what can be added to DDI to make it support your use cases better? So this is kind of an open discussion where we were hoping that the different members could describe maybe how they're using AI workflows currently, what they might want to do, where they see using DDI currently or in the future. So the scientific board is just kind of looking for community feedback to help us put together our strategy. So if there's anyone, there's kind of 4 initial questions here to kind of get the discussion started, but if anyone has any use cases or comments, just raise your hand and we can start the discussion.
Hi there, Frank here. I don't know how to raise my hand, so I'll take the floor brutally. We are actually have been doing some, well, I wouldn't say serious work, but experiments, let's say, on trying to identify concepts from a question label. So, well, 2 things. In one case, we work with an organization that has only the question labels. So we want to represent the metadata in DDI lifecycle. And so the first part is to try to identify what would be the variable which correspond to this question. And then what would be the concept or concepts, that's a question also, that we can link to this variable, to this question. So that's, I think, one field where AI would be particularly useful.
Great. So kind of using AI to help create the DDI documentation that you're using in other systems, kind of the idea.
Yeah, enrich normalize and enrich, let's say.
And Darren had a comment in the chat. Where do you see DDI in relation to Croissant? That is to everybody.
Yeah, the reason I asked that question is because I haven't actually thought this through myself, and I suddenly realized I should, because Croissant is obviously existing expressly for the purpose of modeling, AI friendly kind of data metadata. So does DDI complement that? And if so, how? Or is it an alternative to Croissant in the future? You can probably tell I'm thinking aloud here, but yeah, that's just the first thing that jumped out at me as to where DDI would potentially sit in relation to Croissant.
Yeah, that's a good question, Darren. That's one I've thought about as well too. And one of the first things I thought about was, well, where does the croissant come from? You have to create that from something. It is a little bit of a simpler standard than DDI. So if people have DDI currently, generating croissant for use in AI tools from DDI is certainly possible.
I mean, to me as well. I mean, one thing is that that's a potential opportunity, and this, well, this is I don't know if this is opening a can of worms, but I think we all know that one of the main kind of risks at the moment with AI is that has a fairly, in some cases, reckless approach to the properties of the data in terms of the uh, IP or the sensitivity or the licensing. Is there an opportunity for DDI to integrate some of that kind of trustworthiness metadata that would, rein in some of the more egregious kind of irresponsibility of the way AI models are kind of harvesting metadata?
Dan has a comment here. Isn't the relation between DDI and Croissant much like the problem that the Dataset Exchange Working Group is trying to solve? That from Dan Gilman.
Yeah, isn't I thought croissant was mostly about describing data sets and not so much um, describing things at the variable level that the DDI standards address. And the Data Exchange Working Group is looking at that problem to fulfill a need that the W3C standards don't address, which is describing variables. And so it seems to me that uh, the one of the strengths of DDI is that it goes to that, goes down to the variables, and croissant. I may not totally understand it, but it seems that it's a higher level. And if you want to know something about what the data are, you can't just describe the data set.
Sorry, I can't find how to raise my hand either. I apologise.
No, neither can I, John. I've just thinking of
Just my understanding. I mean, my brief looking at Croissant, I think it does support some uh, variable just type of thing because it absorbs schema.org to the extent that schema.org supports variables. So I think it is possible in some way, shape, or form. Um, thing I wanted to talk really was about more meta, really, I suppose, was about the um, the way in which people are using AI and basically eschewing the idea of concepts, the idea of actually provenance in data from what it was originally intended to be. So you see a lot of people throwing, classification models at data and coming up with weird stuff. Let's put it that way. And I think the whole uh, which is like concepts, control vocabularies, these sort of things, which enable you to understand the provenance of data and what it was originally designed for, even if you repurpose it in a different way. Seems to me something that is seriously under challenge by AI. It sort of seems to sort of move away from that sort of the way you think about data in that way. Um, sort of the magic fairy dust sort of approach. So I suppose that is something that I think is a concern, really. Not want to be a dinosaur, but I think there are enormous advantages to the way that we've approached data and metadata that is under pressure from large language models, which don't really have that level of like rigor, or it's not really about knowledge in the same way as we're talking about data, which is really much more related to knowledge.
So, John, is that more in terms of an AI strategy? Is that more about advocacy for structured metadata rather than any intrinsic technical changes to the standards?
Yeah. I mean, I think if it's not just structural interoperability, but semantic interoperability, things like else is very much firmly in that territory.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a sort of fiction, I think, or a hope that AI will sort of do that for you. And I think that is certainly my experience. I've been on a couple of projects the last year or two, on working with like computer science around semantic interoperability, and it's just not very good at it. And it needs a lot of herding to get it into the right place to do the sort of things we want to do, which is around knowledge rather than just happens to be some sort of proximity, which is a very different thing. So yeah, I think it is about advocacy of the benefits of the sort of, for want of a better word, librarianship approach that sort of underpins a lot of information science approach, that underpins a lot of the standards that we develop and work with and interoperate with.
Yeah, so perhaps there has to be both an advocacy from the Alliance and then also looking at technical changes that might be needed in the products, kind of a dual track approach could be good. Frank?
Yeah. I found how to raise my hand. So maybe one other use case, and John, you know this one very well, is how to use AI to produce the documentation on questionnaires, DDI documentation on questionnaires, and that's all the work that was particularly done by Suparna and the Metacurate project, and that's also, I think, a very interesting line of work.
Megan?
Hello. I wanted to go back to the topic that John was just raising about controlled vocabularies for semantic interoperability with AI. That's something that I'm from ICPSR, and it's something that I feel like I hear a lot at ICPSR as well. And we sort of, I feel like we have a pretty good sense that controlled vocabularies are still improving things in terms of semantic interoperability, but I know I personally struggle to point to examples. So one thing that occurs to me that we could look at in how do we advocate for this is like, well, here's an example where we used a controlled vocabulary to try to improve the performance of AI for like retrieval, for example. And here's some demonstrated examples where it helped or where it did better. Because I like I think probably a lot of us on the call, I feel like yeah, there we know the value of these tools, but folks who aren't used to that, thinking about it from a librarian perspective, don't know. And I think in a lot of cases would benefit from seeing like, here's exactly how or why. So if anybody has those examples that they've come across that they would like to speak to, I know I'd be curious to hear them.
Yeah, coming up with some examples showing, benchmarks how DDI or controlled vocabularies or just structured metadata in general can help improve usage of these tools for corpuses of data. That'd be really interesting to do. Any other comments? Well, if we don't have any other examples or comments on the call today, the scientific board is also planning on doing a survey that we'll be sending out to the members and maybe a little bit more broadly to gather some more feedback about, use cases and how you're using AI and what the interactions between, your metadata, your data, and your AI strategies might look like going forward. So you'll be hearing from us within the next month or two about that. Thanks.
All right. Thanks, Dan.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Darren and Dan. And before we close, I would like to ask, are there any other questions to the other talks that have been held today? If so, please raise your hand or write into the chat. No other questions. I don't know. You, Jared, posted some comments in the chat. Would you like to elaborate on those, or?
Sure, yeah, I just posted some comments earlier when Dan was speaking about the ISO documentation, and one, the designated member representatives from full DDI Alliance member organizations may request a complimentary copy. Just contact me. We want to offer that to all of our members. And then also we have a new DDI logo, which features the tagline published ISO metadata standard. And that's available on the DDI Alliance website. So anyone can go and grab there, and we encourage you to do that to help raise awareness of this ISO recognition.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Jared. And then, yeah, I would like to thank everybody for all the great work that is going on. And my understanding is that what DDI is doing is much more, we say, no in the wind than ever. It's kind of interest and uptake from all over the place now, and it's so good work going on within the Alliance and in the collaborations between the Alliance and other standards bodies and projects. So it's really, really, really nice to see. I don't know if you, Darren, have something to add before we close today, or?
No, I'm good, Hilda.
Okay. So then I just want to thank everybody from participating here today and for the discussion, for the presentations, and we'll see each other again at there is a members meeting in 1 week, so member representatives will come there, and others there will be opportunities, and please keep as engaged as you are. It's so nice to work with you. So thank you very much to everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Yeah, thanks,
Bye.
Frank.